Welcome, Jody. Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Glabinski. I'm here representing pricing and revenue management with my experience, and I have my guest Jody, who's got experience in the self-storage industry as a manager, as the owner, and now a business development director for StorTrack.com, which is our company. This is the second webinar of ours. We've had one few weeks ago, and we have been discussing about some basics of revenue management then. And the conversation with Jody led us to decide that the next webinar is going to be on price tactics used in the self-storage industry. So just a few words about StorTrack. We are the leading provider of business intelligence to self-storage industry across the world. We're very strong in US, pretty strong in Australia, and we're coming into Europe. We're coming into UK to help the self-storage managers here as well, because our mission is to help automate the manual process of competitive rates research. Everybody's researching rates. Everybody's doing that either manually or through a tool. We are the tool for that. The way our webinar look are pretty simple. We try to share with some of the educational part on pricing revenue management, and today we're going to be talking about pricing tactics. We do share some data that is coming from StorTrack. And then we have a discussion with Jody about the education and the data and the things that we will mention during this webinar. As I've mentioned, we are going to talk about pricing. So let's start with the first part and some know-how about prices. Generally, price of a good or service is basically the result of the relationship between the buyer and the seller. So if there's a will to buy, there's will to sell. And if the price is right, we get into the agreement, we have a transaction. In the normal economy times, there is no normative right price for a good or service. In fact, the prices are very stable and they are fluctuating between the range of minimum and maximum prices. Only big events like commercial events or terrorist events or political events or any other events like pandemia can actually interfere with this a typical price fluctuation, making the products or services to be sold at very, very high or very, very low. But usually in the normal economic times, prices are fluctuating. So there is a range between the prices for each product. And in fact, suppliers often offer different prices for similar products within the range that the market allows for for as long as the buyers are willing to buy it. So there are different ways to buy the same product and at a different price. On the last webinar, we've been discussing the demand curve. We've learned that there's a lot of people willing to buy for low price and there's few people willing to buy for high price, but they do exist. So many companies, many corporates are using this in order to attach the price to a product in a way so it can be addressed differently to the person who has a high willingness to buy or a person who has a low willingness to buy. The tools that are used by people who are responsible for pricing are not based on economics, therefore they are more based on they are based on math, statistics, or market analysis. And as they are, typically it creates three different pricing tactics that we can observe across a lot of industries. My experience comes from travel industry. Jody's experience comes from the self-storage industry. So let's see how this can come together. We have three major price tactics: cost-based pricing, market-based pricing, and value-based pricing. So let us take a small explanation of what these are. First, cost-based pricing. The model for that pricing, the calculation for that pricing is fairly simple. We are taking the costs for a unit, we are taking the profit or the margin that we want to make on that unit, and therefore we have the selling price per unit. Cost-based pricing is very popular. In fact, it's the most popular pricing method I would say, dare to say, that about 60-70% of hotel industry is using cost-based pricing. Why is that? Because cost-based pricing is very easy to calculate. You know exactly what your costs are, so calculating costs per unit is very, very easy. You know what car you are willing to drive, so it's very easy to calculate your profit with, and therefore you get the selling price. It's also very easy because the cost-based pricing has very strong two arguments that are hardly discussable. The first argument is the belief that if the price that I have set based on my costs and my profit was increased, my customers would buy competition. They would go to buy a lower price. But if I was asked to increase my price, it's also not possible, because then I would, if the price was increased, the customers would go to a competition. And if I lowered the price, then the competition would match it. And therefore we would affect the whole market. So it seems like cost-based pricing is an ideal pricing that cannot be moved higher or lower. Also, the system is very clear, very logic, and it's very easy to teach people how to calculate it. And therefore, it infiltrates very easily the whole corporate structures. Very popular method of pricing. But maybe Jody, you can tell about cost-based pricing in self-storage industry. How does that look in your field?
I would say that's probably not the model that we follow as much.
Okay.
So I think as you go on with a few more examples and see how it affects, I guess because we're selling space, if you think about it, and you roll up the same garage door and you sell it again, it's not as easy to calculate maybe the cost and the expected profit. It's a lot larger formula. So the storage industry is really based on demand and supply more.
Oh wow, that sounds very advanced and very, very interesting. So let's take a look at some other different types of price tactics. The next one is market-based pricing. Now, market-based pricing comes from a market research somewhere. And corporates started to use market research in 1960s. And since then, they learn and they conclude from the research that they are doing. So you take a selected number of people, potential customers, you make a research of what are their habits, what are the preferences, what are the likes and dislikes, in order to use some mathematical models to produce forecasting, product sales planning, to product planning, product positioning, pricing, promotions, etc., etc. So based on the marketing research, we are adapting the price more to the laws of supply and demand, more with respect to the competition. And there are several very popular pricing methods that come from market-based pricing. One of them is, for example, skim pricing. We know that, Jody, every time we go on holidays, we go to an OTA, we see a hotel and the price is crossed out and we see a new discounted price. The market research behind that is that if people see that there is a higher value product or service that is being sold cheaper, it kind of increases their urgency to buy or their willingness to buy. And therefore, when I go on an OTA, I'll see a product that is worth, according to my perception, by reading this, £280, I see a price of £167. That seems to be like a great deal, and I'm really willing to buy that. Does that happen in self-storage as well?
Yes, obviously we're trying to, also put out a sense of urgency. We want you to, pick our storage unit, pick our company, and rent now. So in the U.S., we have a lot of that, where we have the strike-through pricing of one price, and if you rent it now or rent it online, you can get that lower price to get that better deal, and try to capture that demand and that rental right now.
Okay, so that's how it's called, strike-through pricing.
Yeah, that's what we call it in the US, and typically it's more what we call also could be a walk-in rate compared to a web rate. So I would imagine the same thing in the hotel. If you walked into the front desk and never looked at the website, you may be charged the 280. But if you see it on the website, you can sign up for it now and get it for the 167. So very similar to the storage industry.
Okay, very, very, very interesting. In fact, I did some research on the UK market, and it didn't take me quite long to find examples of scheme pricing or strike-through pricing. There's lots of units. There's lots of companies that already practice this pricing technique, which
Yes,
obviously is logic and makes sense. Another type of market-based pricing is demand-based pricing. Not sure, Jody, if you know Uber. Uber is a great example of
sure.
demand-based pricing. If normally the rate for a ride is quite cheap, but if there's a huge demand and if there's low number of drivers that cannot accommodate that demand, the price usually multiplies. And
Right.
we've seen 2 times, 3 times, and 4 times. And that's using the situation according to the market research, where if the products are getting kind of shorter, people tend to be willing to spend more for them in order to get them. So I think we've seen that in every single country after COVID, where toilet paper kind of went missing. And that's kind of, if the companies would have increased the price of the toilet paper, that would have been demand-based pricing. Obviously, it was falsely inflated, so there was some moral opinions about using the pandemic to increase the price or decrease the
Right.
price. But the construction of the tactic is there. In hotels, for example, it's very popular to apply this method to say when my occupancy goes high, so I have less and less rooms available, I think I can address those less rooms that are available to a higher end of the demand curve for customers who are willing to pay more. So I would increase the price. Um, have you noticed that in the self-storage industry?
Yeah, that's a huge formula that the
It
storage
is.
industry uses, basing occupancy and, as certain unit types fill up, then, and the demand is more, then the price goes along with that demand.
Okay, very well, because
So,
it also works the other way. If there's a lot of supply, then the companies may take the decision to decrease the price in order to
correct.
address the lower end of the demand curve, so that they can start filling it up as well as then increasing the prices. And I found an example on the self-storage market as well. I think actions like Black Friday sales are great opportunities because they are time controlled situations where you can really use the fact of a marketing of a Black Friday and sell out a lot of supply that would not be sold
Otherwise,
other way.
hmm
Right. The next one I have is penetration pricing. That one is very interesting. Coming from the airline business, we all know low-cost carriers, but I've put a very popular McDonald's example here as well. Penetration pricing is about when the company wants to introduce some new product, new message, a new service, they would run a campaign which is very strictly time limited that would give a very, very good value, like a price of €1, like the low-cost carriers, or even in this case, a coffee for free. So a few years ago, we were not considering McDonald's to be a place where you could get a coffee. You would consider Starbucks or Coffee Heaven or another coffee shop where you would get your coffee whilst you're on the way to work. But McDonald's, in order to introduce that product and that service and to promote it, have come globally wide with marketing campaigns in a limited period of time where they were giving coffee for free. Now, the market research behind that is that if there is a strong message that is really, really attractive, just like a free something, it remains to be remembered by consumers. So as many people saw a free coffee ad, some of them might have just drove in and got the coffee, but a lot of them recognize now that McDonald's is using coffee. Does that happen in the self-storage industry?
It does. I
Okay.
think maybe there could be better examples, or maybe more people practice after they think about the actual example here of penetration pricing. So having a low price unit that you want to offer, maybe putting something on your website as, units as low as $10, or free
$1.
this month. Yeah, $1. So
Yeah.
that pricing would be used there to get them come in and then hopefully buy that or buy something else then.
Yeah, I think the message needs to be shocking in order to catch people's attention. So I would see that for example, if you store your TV, we'll give you another TV for free to store it. Things like that. That's shocking, but it will remain with people. And in fact, if you remember last time on our webinar, we've been talking about most popular ways and types of promotions that the UK self-storages do. And most of them were about 50% off for first 8 weeks or for first 4 weeks. I think this is some sort of a penetration pricing where it gives a huge discount of, half of the price is off for the first 4 weeks. That probably is supposed to drive the decision of the buyer or willingness of the buyer to actually select one store over another. One comment though from me as a revenue manager, we have to be very careful, because if everybody's doing same promotion, that kind of message becomes commodity. If everybody does that,
Right.
it's no longer shocking. So if there's anyone that is willing to give away TVs, I'd be first to use the store. Okay, next idea, and that's an interesting one, and experienced by me a lot. That's the psychological pricing. If you notice the phone in the middle, it doesn't have a price 600. It has a lower first digit and the higher second 2 digits. So it gives a psychological expression that it's not 500, that it's not 600, it's actually 500. And I know that from the fact it works, because if my kids would have seen that, they would see 500. I see 600, but they see exactly 500 without the 99. And in fact, what they would see, it's not 599, it's actually that 25, because that's what you pay per month. It doesn't even say how many months you have to pay 25 in order to pay it, but that's how the communication, the pricing communication works. And the market research is that majority of customers tend to select products or services where the first digit of the price is lower. It gives that impression. You buy with emotions, so you go for 500, and then you radically explain yourself why you've chosen this one and not this product over another. Psychological pricing, I'm sure, very popular with self-storage as well. No?
I guess because there's so many different unit sizes, you're not able to compare almost the exact things. So, but some, yeah, I do think some.
Okay. So that's a very good point, Jody. If you have so many stores and so many different prices, that psychological pricing kind of dissolves.
Right.
And this is what I have found on one of the UK self-storage websites. You can see indeed a few products, few time offers for that product. Prices are per week, but they are very different. You can see the psychological pricing kind of approach, but with the $39.99, $59.99, but it kind of disappears, because you also see $11.50 and you see $18.39. Indeed, psychological pricing needs to work when it's outstanding, just like the iPhone in the middle. We all remember how much it was. It was 600, not 599. Okay, there's another technique for pricing, which is called bundle pricing. That's the package pricing. I already brought a McDonald's example, so I will not go into McDonald's combos. I have an example luggage and suitcases, bundle pricing is used in two ways. The first way is that if you want to sell more products, you put them together. It works very convenient for the customer to buy the whole set instead of buying them separately. It suggests the customer that actually if you buy a car, you need to have insurance. If you buy this type of bag, you also need a hand luggage, etc., etc. The second reason to use this is to actually combine two different products, one product that sells very well and the other one that does not sell very well. But if you put them together, the willingness to buy the first product will also sell the second product. And obviously the idea is that the bundle makes better value in terms of a lower price for the same product as you would have bought them separately. Does that happen in self-storage?
Again, not as much because it's really hard to rent you two storage units. If you buy one, one 100 square foot, I'll add a second 50 square foot on. We usually try to, sell the right square footage the first time. I do see how it might be of value with ancillary products, maybe boxes, and bundle pricing, either a box package for you or maybe those boxes along with a storage unit. So there could be some value to using that.
Exactly. And I think our last slide will actually emphasize more on that. But yes, you're right. It's hard to sell buy two units and get one free. But this is something that really stands out. And this is what I really like. I don't remember which self-storage company was that, but this is a perfect pricing for me. It's got the bundle. It sells the unit. It sells even one manpower. It sells the car. It sells the set of boxes and even the bubbly wrap in one bundle. In another bundle, you can add the tape, etc. This type of pricing is, to me, super cool because it makes me feel that they have thought about everything I need when I rent the self-storage. Because normally, and I have more experience as a customer than as a manager of self-storage, but as a customer, first you start thinking about self-storage and then you realize, oh, you need to add for this and you need to add for that and for that and for that. And then it makes the price, is disappointing. With here, and also with the way this price is presented, where you have 2-3 price options. If you want to go cheap, you've got the cheap option. If you want to go posh, you go posh. But you can see also that most popular way is the one in the middle because it stands out. It's seems like the best value, and you have the ability to compare the values. And that's what the market research was also saying. If you give customer an option, the value is there, whatever the value that is, because if you want to go cheap, you go cheap. If you want to go posh, you go posh. If you want to be in the middle, then you stay in the middle. The only way to think about this pricing is you need to actually have a good and valuable components in between the packages. But we've seen many options like that. It's very, very popular. So that was a couple of very popular examples of a market-based pricing. And we also have another form of pricing, which is called value-based pricing. Now, value-based pricing focuses on individual or a group of customers and perceives what their value could be so that we can address the right price for them. This is like really revenue management. We've discussed this a little bit in our last webinar, where a high price for the same product could be addressed for the higher end of the demand curve, lower price for the lower, and the middle with the middle. The more price steps you have, obviously, the better, the more revenue you get. And for value-based pricing, the most common practice is to use price differentiation. And we've discussed this a little bit on the last webinar as well. I just want to point out that value-based pricing is really focusing on the value and individuality of the customer. The customer here is in number one focus. I'm going to bring in an example from hotel industry as well. You have the same physical room with the same bed, same towels, same cosmetics, but the difference is what you see through your window. So if you want to go the most economic way, you go for the garden view. If you want to go posh, you go with the sea view. And if you want to be in the middle, see some water, but not much, not necessarily spend a lot, you go for the pool view. So you have three different prices for a same product. That's called price differentiation. I'm sure self-storage uses that a lot. To be honest, Jody, I was only able to find one where I could see the price differentiation between the floors. So you can see here at the bottom, 125 square foot unit costs monthly £125 when it's on the ground floor. But if you want to take a stairs, it's going to be only 82. I mean, I'm joking. I'm sure there's an elevator, but especially for 125 square foot. But what other components can influence price differentiation in the self-storage?
Comparing, I suppose, a little more to the U.S. is, with the price of land going up here, a lot of storage operators are building multi-level facilities. That way you pay less for the land.
Sure.
They're also adding a lot of air conditioning storage to that. So we have outdoor garage storage and then air conditioned. So it's kind of based on maybe features and benefits, but also you could simply being close to a door, either the elevator door or to the doors that open to the inside building. If you're the first one in and you pay a few more dollars for that instead of the one that you have to go down the hall around the corner, and also possibly, you could have to pay movers more for being that far away. So your value is paying a little more for it to be closer to the door for your convenience.
That's true. That's what worked for me actually. I've recently changed a higher unit to a bigger unit to a smaller unit, but the other way, smaller unit to a bigger unit, but that bigger unit was much far away at the end of the corner. So I have the same kind of even bigger size, but at the same price. So there are benefits. I mean, from the customer's perspective, I'm happy, and that's all it matters. So price differentiation is a very advanced revenue management pricing techniques, because it requires the seller to actually identify the habits and between different types of customers. So they need to identify that me at my age with family, etc., I am able to walk down the corridor to reach the last one in order to pay less for more. But there are some other people who will be more convenient to use the units closer to elevator, or maybe at the ground floor, like in this case. The trick here is a lot of analysis and a lot of insight on what type of customer you have and what type of business you run. Requires lots of analytical insight, and obviously it's quite difficult if you do that analysis manually. So to sum up, we have three major price tactics: cost-based, market-based, and value-based. And each one of them has its specification. Each one of them is unique. The cost base is based on the cost and the margin, but it ignores competition and customer. So that's why it's really preferred by people with financial backgrounds. Market-based pricing is based on competition, but it ignores cost and customer. And I will explain that. The market research that is being made is usually made in the long period of time, not too frequently. So whilst you do research based on customers about, let's say, scheme pricing, today, maybe after pandemia, that scheme pricing may no longer be working, but you still apply that price tactics based on the previous research. So it kind of ignores the customer as well. It's preferred by salespeople, and value-based pricing is based on the client, the most sophisticated one, but it ignores the cost and it ignores the competition, because now it's not about the price, it's about the value that we offer to the customer, very preferred by marketing teams. So let's take a look at some data that we've been able to pull out from StorTrack. StorTrack searches prices for, now it's actually 3,300 more or less self-storage units in UK. And when I, with my analysis, when I look at the data that we have, all I can say is that the units that we have in UK are all very scattered around. They are all over the place. In fact, top 5 cities, you can see here London, Bristol, Manchester, Birmingham, and Leeds. These are the top 5 cities with the number of units that we track. London being the leader, it's got 5 times more units than the other cities, Bristol, Manchester, Birmingham, and Leeds. But if you can see the number here in percentage, they only represent less than 10% of all the units across UK. And there's a whole lot of different cities with locations for self-storage where there's just 1 unit or 2 units. And they represent 34% of everything. So it's between 1 and 2 until 100, until 30 something and 172. All the units are all in different places. And the reason why I'm saying this is not because it may be interesting, but maybe for someone who's investing in London, it may be, but it is interesting because I've noticed one thing about UK, and I'm wondering, Jody, what your opinion is. Out of all the self-store units that we track, 42%, so almost half, do not publish prices. To me, from the travel industry, it was quite shocking. That was shocking. There is no price on the website. I've started to dig in what could be the reasoning for it. All I could find out is that the regions where there is no price on the website usually have 37% lower number of households than the regions where the prices are available. So I was thinking that could be driven by competition and the dynamics of the market. Do you see similar kind of tactic here as well in US?
Yeah, I don't. We would have to run the numbers for the US. There still are operators who don't publish their prices online, but certainly I would say it would be closer maybe to 80% publish and less than 20% don't.
Wow.
And like you said, for the ones that I know that either I've had as a client or known in my own competitive market, it is because they're maybe very rural, very small, low competition. So maybe not even good internet in those areas could be a contributing factor.
It was very interesting. So because to be honest, it creates a 4th price tactic. I mean, no price is still a tactic, and there's plenty of different suggestions, the different examples on how to get a quote, how to contact us, etc. And that was still bugging me. Why is that happening? So I've done a little research and I've checked very, very famous websites or e-commerce consultants who actually write about why we publish prices, why we don't, why should we, or why shouldn't we. And I was looking for reasons. So let's see, Jody, if these are some familiar reasons you've had in your experience. The first one is, I'm afraid that the price will deter clients. Is that something that you would see as a stopper for showing prices online?
Yeah, and this goes back to showing how many years I've been in storage before prices were published online. You know, we had the yellow pages, and the yellow pages required a call or a visit to the facility. So many operators were apprehensive of putting their price out there, thinking that, you know, if they see that price and they don't get to call us, they don't understand what comes with that price or what comes with that unit. Or seeing too many prices online and knowing what the competition has to offer, what's going to get them in my door if everybody puts prices online.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't think that could be the reason, because I mean, if there's people watching, you can obviously comment or send us some questions, or even later when you will be watching the recording of this video. It would be great to hear your insight, because well, this expert is saying that really most customers have a budget in mind. So if they go online and they see a unit that costs 125 pounds and it's completely out of the budget, they're not going to give you a call. But there is a fair reason why they're not going to give you a call. So handing out the price just for a customer to make that call and realize it's 125 pounds more or less will have the same effect. It just requires a lot of effort from the customer and a lot of resource from the company. Now, you maybe if you're a good seller, you may convert some customers, but it's not going to happen when we're talking more than 10% difference, right? So I don't think it could be that. Another one mentioned, one of the popular reasons why we don't publish prices is that the perception that my customers, my competitors will know what I charge and they will try to undercut me. Could that be a reason?
I've heard the same argument.
All right.
Yeah, I think, that's what they're thinking in their mind, but we know that they're going to, if they're going to shop anyhow, whether it's with a call or online, we want to make it easier for the customer, right?
Exactly. And to be honest, like the expert says here, newsflash, I'm sure your customers already know your prices. I mean, I don't see a company living out there without the know-how of what the competition prices are. So more or less, maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult, but I'm sure competitors already know your prices anyway. Another reason was it's too complicated because every client is different. Now that one is very sincere and very logic to me. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I guess this would be more of an example of using some value or differentiation in your pricing, so that there's something for everyone and not make it complicated.
Yes, exactly. You're saying the same thing as the expert was saying, because he's saying that although we may perceive every customer to be different, there are some similar behaviors in between the customers. So the more you pick them out and you segment them, the more of that experience you can present online without involving your own resources, because obviously human resources are much more expensive to handle than the experience you can provide on the website. So that's what the experts are saying. And other ones, and maybe this could be it, it's not done in our industry, or we would never do that. Have you heard those arguments before?
I think, again, comparing, much more is online, much more prices are displayed here in the US. So I
You
think
don't.
it's just, yeah, we don't see it as much.
Yeah. It could be here. Maybe if we have almost 40% of destinations of cities with 1 or 2 units, maybe there is a perception that it's not done in our industry. I don't know. But then on the other hand, half of them already do that, do publish prices. So here the expert says that price is a very big part of purchase decisions, and there is always a dialogue in between customer and the seller. So if you don't have the price, you are out of the dialogue. And if you're out of the dialogue, someone else will be in it. And they actually suggest, I think it comes from HubSpot actually, marketing experts, they actually suggest to create a blog about pricing, to write about your pricing strategy, your pricing models, to explain the value that is going behind the pricing. Nothing about the cheapest price, just about creating this understanding with your customer about the price, because they want to be in the dialogue. So that I think is very interesting one. And the next one, and the last one I'm going to quote, was my sales strategy relies on customers calling for a price, right? So it is on purpose. The strategy purpose is to actually have my customer call in, because I have a trained set of skilled people at the phones, waiting to pick up the phone and waiting to cater any needs of the customer. With the complex product, with the complex pricing, probably it's easier for the telephone operator or reservations operator to pick up the phone and try to close the sale. The only question I would have here is, you can really well measure the conversion of how many phone calls you get to how many of those you convert into sales. But then how do you know how many phone calls you don't get? I mean,
Right.
that's uncountable, I guess, an unknown. So that's one thing that I would be cautious of having this kind of argument. So what else to focus on? And one of the experts says that whatever matters to the customer. So obviously price is an important decision-making criteria. If we publish it, we make it easy to make that decision for the customer. And sure, pricing doesn't show your value and doesn't improve your branding, but if it can achieve to assist the customer in a better customer experience, why not? That's basically the conclusion. Although we all realize that there's a lot of reasons not to put the prices out, and many of them seem to be very valid. So that's how I just explained the UK, almost half of the market, that they just perceive the fact. But I really want to hear from everyone their comments. What are the reasons of why not putting our prices? It's definitely not because of us, because we still have prices, but it's very interesting to learn about the self-storage as a seller and the customer as a buyer. One thing, I've read a really interesting book. What we should focus on is what the customer expects from us. And I read a great book by Patrick Dixon recently, The Future of Almost Everything, where he says it takes 5 seconds to double your sales. And that means that if you can decrease and speed up the customer experience by 5 seconds, you are almost able to double your sales. So how long does it take you to find a shop assistant? Make it 5 seconds quicker, faster, and you double your sales. How long does it take you to wait in the checkout? Make it 5 seconds faster and double your sales. How long to complete an online transaction? 5 seconds faster, you can double your sales. So thinking about that, where the future goes, and knowing that companies expect huge efforts to speed up and simplify customer experience, that kind of is very interesting how the future will go, especially now when we have more competitive times. Because an example I found here on the inside, I don't want to mention who that is, but this was like a great example of how the steps can take a lot of time. So there is a first step. Then first you need to find a city. Then the next, it takes a couple of seconds. Then the next step is you need to find the outlet in the city. Then the next step is you have to identify yourself, whether you're personal or business. And I've seen educational as well somewhere. The fourth step, every step is few seconds, at least to read it, not even to answer it. Then you have to identify what unit you're looking for. Then you have to identify for how long. And then you end up having a form to fill so that someone's going to call you back regarding what you just filled in. So that's like 6 steps that do not end in transaction. It's six steps that end up in potential frustration because you've spent a lot of time. If you divide that, if each step is worth 2 seconds, then you get 3 times faster process. If you make it 3 times faster, then you have 6 times better sales. So it really, I guess, is important. And when you compare this to this, you know, Jody, what's easier for you as a customer?
Yeah.
I mean,
seeing it right in front of you, huh?
Like. Exactly. So we've discussed different pricing tactics very briefly, but we've been able to compare some common practices. We've benchmarked them with some self-storage practices. The fact that we have some published prices and non-published prices, that's something, a characteristic that will probably evolve towards where the customer experience goes to. One thing that I'd like to finish is the slide that I've already mentioned before, is this one. And maybe Jody, you've sent me this, and I was really keen to see that, but maybe you want to explain what's happening there.
I guess just with, like you said, with some of our data, some of the things that we're looking at and what's going on in the environment related to COVID, you see that operators here really are moving forward to put more online, and now to be able to offer maybe some of that bundle pricing that we were talking about, bundle tactics to using to show you that now you can actually pick your whole package and bundle it together, purchase everything with a credit card, hands-free, and replace some of that risk for yourself, and sell more, take care of the customer, and present it all online. So this is just something that was recently emailed to me, and I thought this is really great that we're taking advantage of that moving forward.
Yes, and I think that this industry will follow hotel or airline industry, where ancillary revenue is like a big part of the total revenue of the companies. And if you have a booking engine that can book and buy your product and your service together with ancillary revenue, that's really convenient. And there's this thing that says here, the sentence, replace risky office visits with an online shopping cart. That is like wow, you can see where the trend is going to.
Right.
Right, Jody, 45 minutes of our webinar is about to end. Thanks very much for your conversation. Thanks everyone who was watching or who will be watching in the future. If you have any questions or if you want to participate in our webinars, please don't hesitate to contact us. Email us at info@stortrack.com. Call us 020-3048-3123, or just visit our website, and we'll try to grab you from that website with our great website content and fill forms. Thanks very much, Jody. Enjoy the rest of the day. And
great presentation. Good insights, Chris. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks very much. We shall be back with our webinar in about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe beginning of September. So stay tuned for that, for the next information. We will see what we will be talking about. We either move into some revenue management education, maybe we'll have some interesting data, or maybe you have the idea of what we should be talking about. So
yeah, send us an email or a request.
Please do. Looking forward to see you, Jody, in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, take care and bye-bye.
Thank you.